My name is Clayton Cheever. I use he, his pronouns. I am the director here at the Moore Memorial Library in beautiful Norwood, Massachusetts. I'm so excited to have you all join us tonight. We have a wonderful guest who we're going to spend the next hour talking with. We're going to talk, Anita and I will talk for about 45 minutes, and then we'll open up the floor to questions. When we open it up, I'm going to take off we have dual mics because Norwood Community Media is recording this so we can share it with people who can't be with us tonight. And we're so appreciative for their support and for being here. But when we go around and you have brought your own questions, I'll take out their mic and pass this mic around so everybody can hear you. We are pretty packed. We'll proceed. I'm just so excited. I was told the one thing I had to do in introductions was to make sure to thank the Plumer family and all the friends of Stuart Plumer. There's actually two things I need to do, but it's all related. One is to thank the Stuart Plumer family because when Stuart was a friend of the library for many, many years, for those of you who didn't know him, he was just such a gentleman, served as on our trustees for over 30 years, gave just so much to the town and to our space here. When he retired from being on our board of trustees, he made a donation so that we can have a author series. And then when he passed just over a year ago, his family continued in that tradition and are bringing the people on this guide to us, including this program we have this evening. We've had some wonderful conversations so far, and I'm really excited about tonight and the ones we have to come. After tonight, make sure that you have Thursday, September 7th on your calendar when Rachel Kadish will be presenting and talking to us about her work. She wrote From a Sealed Room and Tolstoy Lied, a love story, as well as a novella, I Was Here. She won the 2017 National Jewish Book Award for The Weight of Ink. So that should be a lovely evening as well. So please come to that. If you need one of these, we have plenty of them around, and I'm happy to give you mine. We have a bookseller, Aesop's Fables, is here selling copies, and Anita will be signing afterwards. So if you'd like to stick around and support an independent bookseller, we're very appreciative for your support. Thank you for being here. Yes, thank you. Let's support local booksellers. Yes. We love it. So now we're going to go into the conversation and just dive right in. Anita Diamond, if you're wondering how to say your name, it's not Diamant. I thought it was like that for years, and she can tell us a little bit about the origin because it's kind of interesting where the name comes from and why it's pronounced Diamond. But most of us were introduced to her. Well, many of us were introduced to her from the Red Tent. So maybe that was the first thing you read. I know she was a poetry writer for a long time. She was a journalist. If you saw my interview with Midge Zukoff, he knew her at the Globe when they worked together and had wonderful things to say about that experience. And she has written, is it 5 novels, I believe now? Yeah. And written original, several pieces of nonfiction, and is revising them like crazy. I can give you the whole list so we can talk about it. But one of the things that struck me when I was reading is I was reminded in one of your novels, or let's see, let me get oriented here. In one of your pieces, you talked about how, it was an Addie, this is what it was, and you start The Boston Girl, your most recent novel, talking about her was asked by her 22-year-old daughter how she got to be the woman she was today. Were you prompted? Did somebody ask you that question? Can we, it's a weighty question.
It's a terrible question. But this was an ongoing, long conversation with her granddaughter. So this is, a long conversation. I'm very lucky to have gotten where I am, My father was a big reader. My parents were immigrants and spoke a lot of languages, and a big reader and encouraged reading. And so the spoken word, music, all of that was very much part of my childhood. So he read to us,
that's great.
My brother and I, yeah.
So grounding in place, we're in Norwood. I think this is your first time in Norwood.
I think so. Yeah. I've driven through.
Right?
I sold a car here.
Right, yeah. You may have come to Newbury Comics. That was one of my early experiences here. No, not yours. I knew you may have a CD there. I know you have one CD out, but
that's very nice of you. I wrote lyrics to music by a very dear friend of mine who's a jazz composer, which was the most fun I ever had writing anything.
That's fabulous. Yeah. You grew up in Newark originally. Mm-hmm. Do you have any family still in Newark?
No. We left. I was born in Brooklyn. My parents were immigrants, and we moved to New Jersey, to Newark, New Jersey, which was a it was Philip Roth's New Jersey, what
Okay.
he wrote about. When I was about 12, we moved to Denver, largely because of my father's health, and I had a couple of uncles there as well. One of my uncles had been treated at was it Jewish hospital, Jewish Doctors Hospital. He had tuberculosis, and that was where national. It was one of those.
Yeah.
So he was there, and then my grandparents moved. A lot of us ended up in Denver,
Nice.
which was a big change from Newark.
Culturally, it's
Yeah. But I made very dear friends. I still have, and
And you went to Boulder for a
for
couple
2
years.
years.
Of college.
I went to University of Colorado for 2 years, and then transferred to Washington University in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And then I got a master's in American Studies from SUNY Binghamton.
Right. Which everywhere people are. Maybe this is just a weird aside that caught me. Everyone was talking about it as Binghamton University.
It is now. They
But
changed the name.
Did they
yes, they
officially
did.
change it? So it's not
yes.
SUNY Binghamton
No, it's
anymore?
Binghamton University.
But when you went, it was SUNY Binghamton.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
What attracted? I mean, I know it's a fabulous school. Was it just the reputation of the school that brought you to New York, or?
Actually, I was graduating from WashU, and I asked my beloved English teacher, "What am I going to?" I didn't know what to do,
No.
and I said, "How about graduate school?" And he wrote me a recommendation.
Okay.
So I got a TA position at
That's a
Binghamton,
good
and
deal.
that's basically,
Yeah.
this is not a planned career. I don't,
No, it's-
So I went there, and I realized I didn't want to be an academic. I did not like that world, and it was sort of killing my love of reading, actually. So
you
then
have to read. It takes
yeah,
a
but it's
different
not just
tone.
process
you
it.
had
It was
to.
just not fun anymore. So moved to Boston because I had some friends here. I wanted to live in a big city, but I knew people here, so that was why I came here in
Lived in
1975.
Brighton, or Alston Brighton, probably. As
Alston
most.
Brighton,
Yeah,
that's
there
where I
you go.
started. On 2 different addresses, Alston Brighton, and then in Newton, and now Brookline.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, and you've written a lot about places.
Yeah.
And in the Good Harbor, I know you spent some time. You mentioned earlier that you spent some time in Rockport. Or
Oh yeah, we have a little house there, and that's my happy place.
Yeah.
And Good Harbor is the name of the beach.
And you can find it on a map.
And you can find it on a map.
Actually, it's not a fictional
It's really
place.
funny when I've been out of state and they say, "What a beautiful name," and I said, "It's a real place," and they was like, "Oh."
Salt Island is an actual
So
island.
it's a real
Mhm.
island.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So geographically, it's real.
Can you do the climb? Have you actually?
I've done that, yeah.
Is it as treacherous as it sounded in the book?
Well, if you're a nervous climber,
Okay.
yeah, it was not very pretty either. The view is nice.
Yeah.
There's an island off of Good Harbor Beach, and low tide you can walk all the way out, which is fun in itself.
Yeah. The mic is not working. Thank you.
This one?
Let's
It's
see.
on.
Maybe we need to.
It's
Thank you. We have some audio
whoops.
questions.
This one is
Yes,
not
that
working.
one.
Is it now? Can
Let's
you
see.
hear me? Oh, you can hear me because I'm projecting, but not because this is working. Oh, but the light's on.
Yeah, it's weird. Try just tapping it. There.
Here.
No, on your.
This thing?
Yeah.
That's this one.
Yeah. No, that's this one.
That's this one? Oh, okay.
That's it. So that's working.
Well, if I talk into my shoulder, I'll
hold
hold
it
it.
if you
I'll
want.
hold it. I'm fine holding it. Okay. Now you can hear me?
All right.
You should have said something. You should have said something.
All right. So we've covered
We'll
everything.
start all over again. Good night.
Sorry. Thank you. We appreciate it. Please let us know if you have audio issues. Yeah, we appreciate that. So we were just talking about Salt Island in
Yeah.
Good Harbor.
Yeah.
Do you get up there on a regular basis?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm only here because I'm invited here. I'm not there
Okay.
as much as possible in
That's
the
where you
summer.
spend the summers, at least.
As much as I can,
Yeah.
back and forth. It's only an hour from where I live, so it's
That is
really
pretty sweet.
like. Actually, I've set 3 novels on Cape Ann.
Right,
And
you
Rockport, and Boston Girl includes Rockport. Last Days of Dogtown is set on Cape Ann, and and Good Harbor is Good Harbor Beach. Yeah.
And I saw that the Boston Girl was originally, your working title was actually Rockport
Yes,
Lodge.
it was. It
Yeah.
was. It was going to be a very different book.
Yeah.
It was going to be about Rockport Lodge. Was, for those of you who don't know, it was for many years, several decades, a place that was very affordable, and it was for single women only. It was started by some wealthy women in Boston who wanted to give young women immigrants without means the opportunity to have an experience of the outdoors and vacation, and it was very inexpensive. And it only closed in the 80s. And the trustees, who were Boston Brahmin ladies refused to invest in it. They didn't want to fundraise, so they wound up spending all of the endowment, and it closed.
Yeah.
It is now a private home, and the sale of it, though, went to help women and children on Cape Ann. So there was at least that. But I watched it fall apart. It's around the corner from where I have my little house, and looked in the window, and it was like they were going to come back. The tables were still there, the china was still on the walls, in those open racks, and there was a piano with music on the benches.
Wow.
And just peeking in.
Yeah.
And so I was intrigued by it, and I did a little research and found out about this history, and then I wrote a proposal for Rockport Lodge, and I was going to tell the history of Rockport Lodge for like 60 years. But I fell in love with the 20s and then 30s, so I wound up writing a book set largely in the 1920s.
And largely in the North End.
And the North End, yeah, because one of the main character comes from the North End and to Rockport Lodge and has, like many of these young women, a transformative experience. Yeah.
So, was it just simplifying? Do you think you'll go back and tell more of the stories of Rockport Lodge?
No.
You're past that?
No, I wrote, chapters about people who don't show up in the book. It took me a very long time to write this book because I didn't know where I was going. Generally, I know where it's going, and a lot of cutting room pages on the floor there. So I realized that I had to focus on one person and on one period of time rather than 60 years.
Just to make it a compelling story?
Well, yeah, I don't write 600-page novels. So
thank you, I appreciate it.
But I was actually thinking, same time next year, that movie and that play about this couple who goes to this motel and you follow them through. I had that kind of idea, but it just didn't work. It took me a long time to figure that out. So.
Was it hard to let go?
No, it was just hard. It was hard to finish it. It was just hard. It was hard. I had a wonderful editor.
That's good. Have you worked with the same editor for many books, or what is your relationship with your editor?
I've had many different editors, and for the most part, I've been very lucky.
Yeah.
I had wonderful editors at the Globe and at Boston Magazine, where I worked. Really wonderful collaborative editors. When it's good, it's wonderful, and when it's bad, and it's only really been bad once or twice, it's awful. It's really awful. So, but when it's good, it's a collaboration, and they want to make it as good as you can make it, and I want to make it as good as I can make it. Right. So it's a wonderful thing.
Hearing support for editors, I really appreciate, because I find that some authors get to a certain status, and I suspect that you could be in this sphere where editors get afraid to touch their work.
But then you have to be, you have to be J.K. Rowling,
right?
Or somebody, who writes. People who write 600-page books over and over again, no one's touching.
Right.
No one's touching
and, and they start repeating the same chapter in the book. And,
So no, but I also don't write that long. I don't. It's just not that I planned it that way, but that's how I do it.
All your books have different voices. I mean, in Day After Night, there's very distinct. If you listen to it, there's like accents that but I'm sure even reading it, the accents jump off the page. There's such a different voice in the Boston Girl. You learn really two different, all the different voices in Good Harbor, but especially Joyce and Kathleen. How do you develop those voices? Is this friends? Because it just seems such a deliberate choice to set them so differently.
Well, it's in the rewriting. I think it's not that I'm copying somebody I know, but that if there's a conversation, they have to use slightly different vocabularies. They have to have a different point of view, and that develops in rewrite. All writing is rewriting. It's the 25th version, but somewhere in the 5th or 6th rewrite,
you get to actually know them.
That she wouldn't use that word. This woman would use that word instead. The women in Day After Night are from different countries. They have very different backgrounds, different experiences, different vocabularies. Although it's all in English, so they're very subtle differences in a lot of ways. So if somebody's sort of a bitter person as opposed to a hopeful person, they would use slightly different vocabulary.
That makes sense. I'm trying to figure out all the different directions we could go. I think I was kind of touched Your work that you were doing before you wrote The Red Tent, you were doing a lot of guides, a lot of nonfiction that were helping people with rituals and ceremonies. And you've said that you were talking about feminism more recently, I believe, and you said that it's nothing less than the profound expression of Judaism's mission, part of the Torah's mandate for justice and the sanctification of life. I'm wondering, is that something that you think about on a conscious basis? Is that something that's just imbued in your work? How do you kind of marry, how did you come to develop this sense of feminism, Judaism, and the stories that you've been telling? With the exception of Dogtown, because I know
no Jews. Yeah. Now, I have written 6 nonfiction guides to contemporary Jewish life. So my first book was The New Jewish Wedding, which was the book that I wished I'd had when I was getting married, because there was nothing that spoke to me as a feminist, marrying somebody who was Jewish by choice, whose born-again mother was happy that he had found a church that he would be comfortable in. So, and I had wonderful
Judaism
teachers.
As that church.
Well, it's to be church, to be a member of a congregation, to be involved in a spiritual life. She was very happy about it, and so we were. But that's not the book. The books that were available were not speaking to me or my cohort. So I wrote the book that I wished I'd had. And actually, when I asked the Rabbi Lawrence Kushner, what I should read, he said, "You should write a book about Jewish weddings because they're awful." And I was a journalist during all of this time. And I learned how to write those books by being a journalist. Boston Phoenix, Boston Magazine, and then as a columnist, occasional writer for the Globe magazine and other publications. But so I knew how to do research, and I knew how to write an essay, and I knew what I didn't know. And I assumed that people of my age, I knew that people of my age also didn't know what I didn't know, in language that would be open to them. The books that existed were either by Orthodox rabbis or etiquette ladies who told you how to, this is my big joke, to match the tablecloths with the matchbooks. Remember matchbooks? Okay, so that's a long time ago. So I wrote that book, first book, and nothing big happened. It was like, you write a book and you think everything's going to change, and I realized, no, not really, not so much. Then I had a baby, and there was no book. So that was the next book, was The New Jewish Baby. Okay. And then
the baby names came later?
Huh?
The baby names came later?
That was part of that book. It was pulled out of that book. So it's a book about ceremonies and naming and traditions and customs, again, written for late 20th century liberal Jewish, liberal in the sense of not Orthodox, and liberal includes a very big swath of the American Jewish community.
Conservative to Reconstructionists, the whole.
And unaffiliated and not particularly religious at all, but interested in one's tradition and wanting to figure out a way to connect to it. So, and as I think I've written a lot, that I write these things because I am who I am. I'm an English-speaking, college-educated, late 20th, early 21st century woman, which means I grew up with feminism, from a family of liberal Democrats, and in my family, Roosevelt was Jewish and Beethoven was Jewish and all the good things were Jewish. We were not an observant family particularly. So, but culturally and in terms of identity, that's who I was. And it really was as an adult that I found my place in the Jewish community, largely because my husband's conversion became sort of my Jewish education as well. So together we created a Jewish family. And it's a lot of privilege that I have, that I got to go to college, I got to do work that I love and is meaningful to me, and I bring all of it to the table. And so, my feminism, my late 20th century notion of what's right and wrong, it comes through. And in the guidebooks, I think it's quite obvious, and I'm saying this, and in the introductions I say these books are for you to make choices with. And here's a range of options for you. There's no shoulds. There's, it's like a smorgasbord. Just make Jewish choices, find your way.
And I know your heritage is from the Ashkenazi tradition.
Yeah.
Do you speak to people from Sephardic, the Mizrahim, sorry,
there's more
greater Jewish diaspora, or is it?
Yeah, it's more and more in the rewrites, because I think the American Jewish community is largely Eastern European or Ashkenazi. It still is, but there's a lot more honoring and interest in the traditions of Jews from Spain and Morocco and the Middle East and those communities. So, and they have much better food. And so the revisions tend to include more, the updates have included more examples from that community as well, because it's a very diverse community. The Jewish community is not all one menu. It's not all one series of melodies. It's different languages. It's Ladino and it's Iraqi, and there's all kinds of Jews speak all kinds of languages, and it's not just Yiddish. So that's been an evolution in, I think, the American Jewish community, and I reflect it in my guidebooks.
Yeah. And in your work with the mikveh, Mayim Hayim. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, saying that right. Oh, brother. Okay. Do you know what a mikveh is?
Yeah.
Yes. Some of you do. Okay, a mikveh is a ritual bath, which is where baptism comes from. And it's immersion in a pool of somehow natural water, which can be brought in from outside with all kinds of caveats. But and it's total immersion, and it's a moment of transition from one state to another, from not Jewish to Jewish, from feeling sick to being healthy. Traditionally, it was used by women after their menstrual cycles, which made them sexually available to their husbands. So it was a series of purification, not cleaning, but of purification, which is problematic for feminists, but it's been reclaimed and re-understood. And in Newton, almost 20 years ago, we founded Mayim Hayim, which means living waters, which is an alternative 21st century reinterpretation of mikveh. Men use it. It's used for all kinds of people use it when they retire. People use it when they become, before their weddings, men and women, women and women, men and men. People use it after a period of mourning to celebrate in the moments of transition. So life cycle, big life cycle moments and small life cycle moments. A lot of women have used it during fertility treatment when they've had a bad month and want to try again and want to start again. It's a new beginning. And it's open to the entirety of the Jewish community. People have come and immersed when they've come out to their families as gay, and transitioning from one to the next gender. That's been part of it too. And it's also an education center, because the American Jewish community doesn't know what a mikveh is for the most part, or didn't. And we have, and Mayim Hayim has started an international movement of open mikveh. And there are some organizations like us all over the place, all over the country, and some overseas. If you want to find out more about it, you go to the website, you go to my website, which is just my name, and you can click through to Mayim Hayim, so you don't have to know how to spell it. So, and it's a beautiful place, and we love showing it to people. So if you're around and you want a tour, you can call and ask for one. So
and you
it's open during the day.
First, I was reading 3 years or 4 years ago, you had over 20,000 immersions.
Well, it's pretty recent we've had that. That's
yeah, it
not
was
true.
2019. It was
it's gone. Yeah. Well,
so it's
the
even
numbers
more.
The numbers are yes. Yeah. Anyway.
I was thinking of it because you were talking about all the different people in the Jewish tradition, and you said there's been 3,000 conversions.
Yeah.
At the mikveh.
Yep.
Which is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's not just, and it's families that are transformed. It's not really individuals, and communities too.
Yeah.
So.
Do people bring their own? I'm used to Haggadahs. Do they bring?
Well, we
their
have.
own, like,
There's ceremonies. Actually, there's just like 3 blessings. That's
okay.
it. It's very simple.
Yep.
And we also have ceremonies that have been written by a little team of a poet and a couple of rabbis, and the ritual is the immersion, and the ceremonies are a way of sort of getting yourself ready for this moment in your life. So there are rituals for people before their wedding. There's something there. There's before bar bat mitzvah, before a child reads from the Torah for the first time. So it just helps people get in the mood and get in the right headspace.
I have so many. Do people prepare before that? Do you take a shower? And
oh yeah, you
have to be super clean.
This is not about cleaning. This is about there's you're supposed to be absolutely clean
before you go in.
You take everything off. It's the least intellectual Jewish thing there is. I mean, we're very talky people and very big on words. This is really total immersion underwater 3 times. There are blessings. People come and don't do the blessings. Some people do the blessings. Those rules we don't. There's nobody telling you have to do it this way or that way. If you want to do it according to Jewish law, we'll help you do that. If not,
nobody's supervising to make sure you follow it and do it correctly.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
You are the master of your own immersion. If you want someone to witness you to make sure you've gone all the way under, we will provide that. If you want to go in and be by yourself, that's fine too. Yeah, you have to make an appointment. I mean, it's
you don't just drop in.
You don't drop in.
Yeah.
So
is it cold? Is it? I mean,
no, it feels great. No, it's very beautiful. Look on the website, you'll see. It's very beautiful.
Nice.
It's very beautiful.
And that's something. So you wrote an essay, I know, and then you recruited a board to join
Yeah,
this mission
yeah.
because
The
the
reason
really wasn't awareness, or it just wasn't there.
the reason was justice. Actually, there was only one place in the Boston area where you could go, and it was run by an Orthodox organization, and it was only open to the liberal community for like 4 hours a week, and if that was a holiday, you didn't get that week, so it was not accessible, and that didn't feel right to me. And I was the chair of the outreach committee at my congregation, and there were times when I was waiting in the parking lot for somebody to come out, and it just didn't feel beautiful. It's supposed to be beautiful, welcoming, and so I thought we should do better. And Boston's a city, the Boston area likes to be first in things, the first subway, the first public library, the first Hebrew college, and so we were the first alternative mikveh.
We had the first teen space for library in Massachusetts, right here in this building.
Right.
So
There
yes,
you go.
we like first.
See, we like firsts. We're very proud of ourselves.
Yes,
It's like,
have you inspired others? Do you know? Or have there been an explosion of
explosion? I don't know. There was an explosion, but there is a
tidal wave.
It's in a wave. It's called Rising Tide. Is the name of the the larger organization, and it's there are groups all over the country, and we have interest from London and Paris and South Africa. There's a partner in Israel. There's a woman rabbi there who, at her own kibbutz, has made the same kind of mikvah. It's that they're not all happy about that there, so let's not talk about that. Yeah. Anyway, so that we're okay. Do you want to talk about books?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's talk about books. Let's talk about menstruation. Your most recent book is Period End of Sentence, and I know you were inspired. That the story it seems pretty common that you were inspired by watching the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
There
was a movie called Period End of Sentence. And in what year was it? 2017, 20? Anyway, a few years ago, they won Best Documentary at the Academy Awards, and they announced it. And this group of young women ran up there, and the director, who was probably 28, said, "I can't believe a movie about menstruation has just won an Academy Award." And a lot of the women in the audience stood up and howled, and I jumped off the couch, and I thought that was fabulous. I mean, it really. And I watched it the next day on Netflix, which you can do too. And
It's 26 minutes long. So
yeah, it's about a village in India, and it was produced by a small organization in California in a high school. That because they were in Hollywood, they said, instead of just raising money to help, let's make a movie to show the world what's going on here. And they had the connections there to do that. Anyway, I was called some months after that because the people who were making the movie, and this is the cover, which is very similar to the artwork of the film, looking someone to write a sort of a companion book. And so I didn't have a project then, so I said, sure. And so I signed up, and we talked about it, and there was talk of me traveling. I had 1 year to do the book, and then COVID happened. So this was my COVID project, and I'm very grateful I had something to do. I really would have lost my mind. So I did a lot of research online. I interviewed people in different countries around the world. I did a lot of reading, and this is kind of an overview about menstrual injustice and the battle for menstrual justice. And it's full of very sad, horrible stories, and it's also full of inspiring and hopeful stories really led by young women, for the most part, young people, in high schools, in middle schools, in colleges, and all over the world, in India, in New Zealand, in Scotland, everywhere. This is international.
In Brookline. I mean,
in Brookline, that's right.
I love the story that you were sharing earlier about.
Oh yeah, it's in here. Yeah, there was a high school student who wrote an editorial for the high school newspaper complaining about the fact that there were no products in the bathrooms for the girls. And it was a very well-written article. She was one of Amelia's students, actually, TI, my daughter. And the piece was read by somebody on city council, a woman on city council, and she brought it before the city council, town council, and they voted to put period products in all the municipal buildings in Brooklyn. I'm not sure it's been actually, it's uniformly, it passed. I'm not sure it was funded. I'm not 100% sure everyone's doing this, but that's how this happens, because a bunch of people say, this is, it's on a par with toilet paper. If you're paying for the toilet paper, the town should be paying for menstrual products as well. It's parity. Half of the population at some point is going to get caught without what they need when they're out of home. And there are also lots of girls, I'm afraid, who go to school who don't have period products because their parents can't afford it. And if you have to choose between buying food for the family and buying pads or tampons, the food comes first. And in many schools, it's the nurse, girls will go to the nurse, and the nurse will provide out of their own pocket because they are not given any support for that. So this is part of, the world we live in. This is what we've inherited from patriarchal systems. And it's sort of, kind of in a way, the last frontier. Nobody wants to talk about this. When I got the assignment, one of my neighbors asked me what I was working on, and I said, I'm not sure, it was a man, and I said, I'm not sure you want to hear this, but, and then I heard myself say that, and I never said it again. I'm writing a book about menstruation. And, then I did the toilet paper analogy, and he went, oh, of course.
I don't carry toilet paper when I go out.
Right, I said, are you carrying toilet paper? And actually, this is a man of Indian descent, and a few weeks later, he said, my mother didn't go into the kitchen part of the month, and she would send me in to do things, and it just occurred to him that was why, because it wasn't talked about. It was just, that was part of life, but he didn't make that connection. Man, in his 40s, professional guy here, and so this is what we don't talk about, and it's not always an easy conversation. Humor is always good.
You said there was an administrator who said, they didn't want to put it in all the schools at first.
Yeah, there was a bunch of middle school girls who said, we want to put products in the school, and he said, well, we can't do that because they would take advantage of it. People would abuse the privilege. They would abuse the privilege. So they would steal them, right? They would take them. Instead of when they went home and they baked cookies that looked like tampons. They were very good cookies. I mean, they, white frosting, a little splash of red, a string, and they put it on Twitter, and it was shared widely. And then I think the woman who's the head of Planned Parenthood saw it, and she shared it. So, viral. So he was mortified, and he said, "Okay, you can put him take the thing down. We'll put the products in the bath." And these girls were just terrific, and they started something called the Revolutionary Girls Baking Society. And they had a great website for a while, which I think they took down because they got terrible, horrible comments on it. But the trolls, but this sort of energy in this, we're not going to do this. Why should we be afraid? Why should we be ashamed? And if you're being stupid about it, principal, whatever, we'll take it into our own hands.
We'll see you at the bake sale.
We'll see you at the bake sale. Yes.
Well, for folks who don't know, if you haven't used the bathroom here, we have joined in, and we do have product. We have one bathroom downstairs, and it's a pilot for the town of Norwood. I know that one of our trustees, Donna, was pushing this for a long time, and I was really glad when we were able to do it. So you can go, if you go down to the bathroom in the children's room, there's a dispenser there. It's free, and there's signs reminding everybody in all of the bathrooms that we have around the building.
Yeah. So that's a good step. I mean, and also it reminds people. People say, what can I do? You should put in your bathroom that your friends use, even if nobody you know is menstruating anymore. You put out a display, small, tasteful display of a couple of tampons and a couple of pads in packaged, and it's just a reminder. This belongs in all the bathrooms. It belongs in all the bathrooms. So in your church, in your synagogue, in your place of business. I remember going into a hotel once and seeing them there. Actually, the first place I saw them publicly was at Peabody Essex Museum.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, it was in the bathroom. They had a basket on one side with tampons, and they had a basket on the other side with pads. And I thought, you know, wow.
Right.
I had never seen it before in a public place. And it should be everywhere. Yeah. It's a small step for womankind and humanity.
I liked towards the end of the book, you talk about the pad project.
Yes.
And how they've even gotten away from, like, their mission statement doesn't address pads anymore, because they realize it's a small statement and it's symbolic of something that it's so much more important to do.
Yeah. But it's part of a larger movement, and it's a part of it's a global movement. And in the past, there was actually, when some of this started, there was a lot of collecting products and sending them to Africa, kind of oblige oblige. But organizations now are helping women in the third world countries and developing countries create their own products and make them into businesses, and so it becomes a sustaining thing. And actually, the movie is also about giving these women in India an opportunity to have their own income and to support their families as well. And also not just products, but education, which is really what's lacking. And in the film, when you watch it, they don't understand, boys in particular and men really don't know what it is. And they tried to have a conversation about it, and it was like crickets. They just did not know. And I'm afraid, you know, we're in a time of, like, sex education is back on the fryer, and I really wish we would call this health education. It's part of a larger curriculum about how does the body work, how does the digestive system work, how does the reproductive system work, how do you breathe, and all of that is part of it. And if it was, I just wish we would stop calling it sex education.
There was a piece in there where you talked about a movement. You know, historically, sex education was always, we had the boys in one room and the girls in another room, and we didn't talk about what we did even. And there was and they complained about that they were trying to control giggles and inappropriate.
Right,
And I liked how you addressed that. I'd never even, and it's, you know, I think about friends that are trans or non-binary, and what a disservice. But then all of us have been disturbed because we never get an opportunity to talk about
I interviewed a couple of educators, and they said everyone should be in the same room, so that, first of all, so people have a common language. And so you giggle, that's okay. I mean, the teachers are the ones who get really freaked out about that. And also, for kids who don't really know where they belong, why should you have to choose? You know, and but everybody needs all the information. It doesn't matter, actually. And one guy said, you know, it builds empathy. If this is not part of your body, it makes you just understand. And it's really not, and actually they also think this should start in 3rd grade when you're talking about how do you poop, you know, and how do babies get made, and how do you breathe. And if it's all part of
how
that.
to chew with your mouth closed.
But before it's your body.
Yeah.
And you're just learning about people, grown-up people, and it's less loaded. So then when you're in 6th grade or 5th grade, I know this, you know, it's sort of, that's what that, you know, so, but it's not scary, it's not new. And of course, you know, in Florida, you're no longer allowed to say the word menstruation to anybody under 6th grade, I think, or high school, and girls are starting to get their periods now largely in 5th grade and younger. So the idea that you can't mention this to your students, or if they talk to you about it, you get in trouble, is very disturbing. So.
And there's places where menstruation is being weaponized, and we're advising. We had at the last state library conference a program on privacy and women's health care, and health care, and how, you know, encouraging people, especially if you're menstruating and sexually active, and in certain states you should buy your menstrual products with cash because you don't want to be tracked.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You don't want to be tracked.
You don't want to be tracked. You don't want to have a credit card receipt, because if you stop buying products for a period of time, that could be used against you in court.
Because if you have an abortion.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that.
Yeah,
of course.
Because if you stop and then you don't have a child.
Anyway.
It's a frightening time. So, yes, the more we can do to destigmatize it. Yes, absolutely. Well, I know one question that we're going to get, so I'm going to ask it first, and then I'll get out of the way. What are you working on next? What's your current project? Do you have a ton?
No, I'm waiting for
the
universe. I'm waiting for the universe to.
You're waiting.
Yes.
I mean, you've obviously you can relax. You can enjoy Rockport and Good Harbor, and I'm not trying to push it.
This came out of left field. I really didn't know, and I was actually kind of freaked out that I didn't have anything. So because this came along, I feel like, something will come along.
Okay.
And this is a work of journalism. This is not fiction. And I'm very comfortable writing. It's easier. Nonfiction is easier.
Yeah.
But I'm, we'll see.
Okay. Well, if you wanted to plug
I'll keep
something,
you-
I wanted to make sure we gave you that opportunity.
Yeah, no, I'm
There's
not
nothing
plugging.
you're
I got
plugging
nothing
right
to
now.
plug. No.
All right. Well, we have been talking for about 45 minutes. We got about 15, 20, and then we'll be signing. What kind of questions have you brought?
There we
I'm
go.
going to start passing the mic around, and because I'm tethered, I'm going to pass it and ask you to pass it to each other. We're going to start here, and we're going to go to you.
I love your fiction. Do you have any plans at all to write more fiction?
I have no plans, but I'm open to it. I'm trolling the universe for the next one. I've had a couple of ideas that just didn't work. That, I started and went, nah, I just don't like these people. Actually, yeah, there's a really interesting people who I just don't want to live with for 3 or 4 years. I just don't. So that's me. There are people who like to write about bad people, but yeah. So that's where I am now.
Hi, Anita.
Hi.
I just want to say thank you before I ask my question. I benefited from your Jewish wedding book, your Jewish baby book. I'm still, unfortunately, benefiting from the Saying Kaddish book, which really, that's something special, something I give to friends when they lose a loved one. But you're able to pivot so easily between nonfiction and fiction, or it seems that way. How is it going back and forth? How do you do it?
It's a different job. With the nonfiction, I know what the parameters are. I know sort of where it's going. The first one was the wedding one, and I had written, these are kind of service features when you write for a magazine. For example, you explain, you give resources. So I had done that kind of work for the Phoenix and for Boston Magazine and other national magazines. So I was used to interviewing people. I was used to going to libraries, and all of that served fiction as well. But the guidebooks and period end of sentence are built out of years of working on journalism and on reportage, and I've also written a lot of columns. So I have a voice, and I was encouraged to give my opinions. So I wrote for the Globe magazine for many years. I wrote essays, and then in Parenting magazine I do occasional pieces. Now it's Cognoscenti on BUR. I write for them, and I love writing those little pieces. I have a lot of opinions. So that's that. And with fiction, it's open-ended, and it's a little scary because you can go on forever, and you can. I don't get sidetracked with the nonfiction. I kind of know what needs to be there. I will learn new things, and that's great. I'll put that in. But it's just it's oceanic. It's So I stare at the ocean a lot, which is very good for my creative juices.
So you just mentioned you abandoned some projects because you came up with characters that you didn't want to live with for several years. Wondering which characters from your fiction you feel particular fondness for, or do you have a favorite?
Choose your favorite child. It's good.
Yeah, it's like, I really like Addie. That's Boston Girl. She's just a neat character. And what's interesting about that book, it was really hard to write this because I wrote too much, and the man who edited The Red Tent actually came to my rescue, and I was ready to abandon it 6 times. I was on the ledge, talked me off the ledge. But when I made it a conversation, that was very late, that this is her granddaughter asking her a question, and so she's telling this story to somebody in particular, someone she loves, has a relationship with. So that totally changed the book, and it warmed it up, it made her funnier. So I think she's very present, and the response to the book is so lovely. I've heard from people from all over the place, men and women, and I wish I'd asked my grandmother more questions, but I asked my grandmother, she didn't want to talk to me about it. And also people from different, somebody from Minnesota talking about her German grandmother and how it reminded her of that. So it's not specific to one ethnicity or group. And of course there's Italians and Irish in Boston Girl too, so it's a whole community there. And it's based in Boston, and I really love this area. I love Boston. I learned a lot about Boston while I was writing it. And so I'm really fond of Addie.
I wonder if you might return. One thing that I just read the Boston Girl recently. It ended too soon, and I appreciate the length, but I was wondering. I mean, it's obviously about a girl. It's not the Boston woman. So once she got married, the story really kind of picked up and then wrapped up. And I wonder if we might return and hear about.
No.
Done.
Done. No, this is the story. This is the thing. She's talking to her granddaughter about coming of age. It's a coming of age book.
Well, her granddaughter's going to get older too, and maybe have some more questions. Like,
Her granddaughter's going to be really busy. She's going to rabbinical school, so no. So there's no going back. Actually, the red tent is always. I get a lot of. Are you going to write another biblical saga? And I actually sort of thought about it, but there's no way I'm going to. No one will be as satisfied with it. It's going to be a disappointment.
The sequel is always.
There's a sequel, and I just didn't know how to do it differently enough. The books are really different, as different settings, different centuries, different parts of the world, and that's always really starting from scratch again. And I guess I like that. And I don't write series.
Hello.
Hi.
I worked here for 10 years as a librarian, and I have to tell you, I used all of your books so many times. I see many. They make great book club stories. I'm just wondering, do you have a librarian as any of your characters? Have you done that yet?
Yeah, and actually, Good Harbor, Kathleen is one of the main characters, a children's librarian, and that's because my little girl. I met a children's librarian when she was starting to read, and she gave us the books. And so I was so fond of her. She's just, librarians are, and also because I do research in libraries, librarians are very important people. It's like nursing, It's the unsung but really important point of contact. So, and especially before the internet sort of opened everything, librarians in particular, it really helped me in ways I can't even begin to notice. And actually, with Boston Girl, I used the Schlesinger Library on the history of American women. They were great, and I got to go through. Actually, I went and asked if they had anything on Rockport Lodge, and they have tons of boxes of material that they're waiting to go through, and they put it at the top of the list, so they would go through it, so I could look at all the materials, most of which were not particularly helpful, but some of it really, there were photograph albums and stuff like that were just invaluable. So, and that's thanks to the librarians at Schlesinger. So.
Hello.
Hi.
Given how much you've taught me and everyone about community and immigration through the Red Tent and Boston Girl, I wonder if you have any thoughts about our current demographic changes in the U.S. or you have any favorite people talking about those types of things and think that could be a future book.
No, I mean, I'm first generation, and that comes with baggage, that comes with grief, that comes with loss. It also comes with great gratitude. My parents were very grateful, very critical very left wing. My parents of a lot of what went on in the United States, but they were also very, very proud to be Americans and very glad that they were here. And so those two things obviously don't cancel each other out. Being critical of what's going on in the world from any that doesn't mean you're not patriotic. Not my favorite word. So yeah, and I've written. I don't know how many essays I've written. Columns I've written about like the Statue of Liberty and what's done in spite of what's written on the Statue of Liberty, and give me you're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses, not people with lots of money in suitcases coming here, but people who work. And so it's heartbreaking. It's very much part of American history. It's been over and over and over again. Irish, the Italians, Chinese, people from Latin America, they're all considered less than human until they come to the United States and build the country again, which is what's necessary. So it's the strength of America is being an immigrant country, I think. It has been in the past, and let's hope it will continue to be in the future. We need all these folks to work, we do, for lots of selfish reasons, and also for a lot of humanitarian justice issues at the same time. So I don't know if that answers you.
If you want to listen to me ask questions, I can do this all night as someone. You don't want to do that to Anita, are you?
No. Still
Sorry,
good.
we had a question in the back.
Hi.
Hi.
2 questions. First is, what made you first decide, and how hard was it when you first decided to do fiction writing, make that switch? Or have you been writing all along little stories but just never did anything with them? The second question is, what is your writing process? Like, are you very disciplined in certain hours during the day, or do you just do it when you feel like it?
Okay. I never wrote fiction before I wrote The Red Tent. I never had like a novel in a drawer. I never had an idea. When I turned 40, I'd been working as a journalist for a long time, and I was feeling restless, and I needed to do something different. So I thought, I'm going to try to write a novel. And because of the teacher that I had, the rabbi I had, we were reading this sort of imaginative literature of ancient Jewish in the Library of Judaism called Midrash, which is making up stories to explain things. And so I decided I would take a story from the Bible, of a woman, and try to figure it out. So I started. This was really kind of to challenge myself. It was really, I was a little bored with what I knew how to do what I was doing, and I wanted a challenge. I actually even tried to look for a job, and that was terrible. I'm self-employed.
What ads did you look at?
Oh no, just it was a magazine, and I didn't want to work for somebody else. So I started. That book was going to be about Rachel and Leah and their relationship, but I couldn't figure out what the plot was until I read the story of Dinah, which is a little bit later in Genesis. And then, because she doesn't say anything in the text, I gave her a voice. So so that's where that started. And I spent a couple of years working on it while I was also writing Choosing a Jewish Life, actually, and doing freelance work. So nobody was looking for this book. Nobody was waiting for it. It took a while to get an agent for it. I got a lot of no's back. Very good. No one's reading historical fiction. Send us your next book. So that was that. And then discipline. I work on deadline. That's how I'm disciplined. It's not like every 8 in the morning until noon. It's never been like that. But if I have a deadline, I sort of organize my life towards the deadline. My husband would tell you I'm very disciplined because I make my deadlines. But I'm not somebody who, I don't use, I'm in awe of people who use note cards and put them up on the wall and work from 6 in the morning till 11 and then have lunch and then go back. But I'm always thinking about it, and I think that's true for anybody who's working on a book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. I mean, it's percolating. So walking the dog is a big part of writing books for me. So I always have a dog. I have a new dog, Lola.
You had a blog post recently about losing your dog.
Yes, I did. Toby's gone, but we have Lola now.
Is Lola another rescue?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're very lucky. Got a good one. And she's lucky too. How about that? So that's, everybody has their own discipline and then there are people who just turn them out, and I don't know how they do it. I just don't. Some of them have help. But.
What was your feeling about the movie, The Red Tent?
No. I'll give you my line. We had a benefit showing of the first episode, and my mother saw it. She's no longer with us. She walked out and she said, "Their teeth were too white." I think that sort of, there was a lot of silk in it, I don't know if you remember what it looked like, but that's not what I wrote. And I knew this was Lifetime TV. I knew this was going to not be my book. It made the book accessible to people all over. It's shown in Latin America regularly, and then I get Google alerts and emails from people. And it's shown in England occasionally, and then I get emails. So it helped the book sell. It gave it more of a platform. So it was a good thing to do. But I knew once you give a book to people to turn into a movie, and actually the women who put it together were wonderful. They got Lifetime to spend more money on this movie than they'd spent on anything. They shot it in Morocco. They really were committed to it. They loved the book. And so I have great respect for them. It's not my book, It's okay. There were a couple of scenes that were really spectacular. I think the massacre scene, which I was terrified what they were going to do with, they did really well. And the men were gorgeous, weren't they? They were gorgeous. They were. For two guys.
I think we have time for one final question. Would anyone like to ask a capstone question for the evening? Yes. All right.
It's capstone.
Hi. That's too much pressure.
You talked about the Jewish wedding not being fun. Let me tell you how unfun the Catholic wedding
Oh.
is. So if you're ever thinking of a companion piece, you need just the person.
Oh, Catholic Mass would be like a mass. Yeah, no, I know. I've been to one mass. It's far away though. They were way up in front, and I wasn't part of it. So yeah, I know. They should be joyful, and the couple should be having a great time, and they often aren't. So yeah.
You said in the Jewish Women's Archive article that you wanted Judaism to be a culture of yes.
Yes.
And I think when we talk about joyful, saying yes is a much surer path to joy.
Yeah. So my Jewish guidebooks are about giving people choices and finding ways to say yes to where people are in their lives, and that's what the mikveh is. It's saying yes to contemporary Jewish life and what we live now, the losses we have now, the joys we have now. Yes is good.
All right. Please join me in thanking Anita for being here.
Thank you for being readers, and thank you for supporting your library and your independent bookstores. And this was great. It was very nice for me. It's been a long time since I got to do this, and it's still, after COVID, it still feels like a gift. Yeah, it really does. So thank you.